Instructed you, ordered you. Hey Bhagavan. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Om Agyanatamarandasya Gananjana Salakaya Chakshamatam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapatam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gadamayam Dadanti Sambadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yatapatakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunattam Nitam Tam Shijivam Sadvaitam Sadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Baram Sagana Lalita Shri Vishavitam Jam Namarum Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namini Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Vacharini Nirvishesha Shunyavadi He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopikanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kancha Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Siddhadevi Pranamani Vanchakalpa Turubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. In there's a famous scripture written by Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur, which you've never heard of, although it's famous, and it's called Rajvatma Chandrika. No, you've never heard of it. Rajvatma Chandrika. And one of the chapters in Rajvatma Chandrika talks about a lot of different aspects, or two particular aspects of Lord Krishna. And one is Savagya, and the other is Mugdata. Everyone, Savagya, Mugdata. Savagya means knows past, present, and future. In other words, knows everything. And Mugdata means knows nothing. Knows nothing. So we're going to talk a little bit about this, how this applies to the Absolute Truth, God, and also in this month of Kartik. So this nice verse from Srimad Bhagavatam. Mother Yasoda binds Lord Krishna, and it's text number 19. There's a nice commentary by Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur. So let's do the Sanskrit, everyone. Evam Sandashita Hyanga Harina Vrichyavasyata Swa Vasenapi Krishnena Yashedam Savaram Vase Evam Sadasita Hyanga Harina Brichya Vasyata Swa Vasenapi Krishnena Yashadam Savaram Vase. English. O Maharaj Parikshit, this entire universe with its great exalted demigods like Lord Shiva, Lord Brahma and Lord Indra is under the control of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, yet the Supreme Lord has one transcendental attribute, which is he comes under the control of his devotees. This was now exhibited by Krishna in this pastime. And the pastime is Mother Yasoda catching Krishna. So please repeat. O Maharaj Parikshit, this entire universe with its great exalted demigods like Lord Shiva, Lord Brahma, and Lord Indra is under the control of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Yet the Supreme Lord has one transcendental attribute. He comes under the control of his devotees. This was now exhibited by Krishna in this pastime. So this entire universe is under the control of the Supreme Controller. We have that verse, which many of you may know, Ishvara Parama Krishna Sakchidananda Vigraha and Adi Govinda Savakarnakam. So Ishvara means controller and Para means supreme. So you are all controllers, but not big time. You're not big time controllers. I'm not a big time controller. We're all like small time. And you've chosen to come here on a Sunday afternoon. Others stay at home and watch TV or go to the Blue Lagoon or whatever. So you have a certain control, but you're not supreme controller. You cannot control the weather. You can't control old age. You cannot control death, disease, old age. These things you cannot control. So yes, we're small controllers, but not supreme controller. But it's described the absolute truth, or God, is the supreme controller. Not even a blade of grass. A blade of grass moves without his sanction. Prabhupada writes, actually it's in a commentary on the Bhagavad Gita in chapter 4, that you should know firmly, without Krishna's desire, nothing can happen. Nothing. Your heart won't beat. Nothing will happen without the desire or the permitter of God, Krishna. Therefore, Krishna is known as Upitarastarani Amante Cha, Bharata Bhakta Maheshwara. He's the overseer and the permitter. For instance, if I ask you and you agree, you can lift your hand as we did when we chanted Hare Krishna. So you lifted your hands. But if Krishna takes away that ability, you can't. And then you are paralyzed. There are people who are somewhat paralyzed and they don't have control over their hands. So the doctors or the scientists may say it's something to do with the nervous system, but ultimately the Supreme Lord is not sanctioning certain people lifting their hands, and it's called paralyzed. We take it for granted, but this is ordained ultimately by God. So Krishna is the supreme controller. Ishvara, Parama, supreme. Parama means the best, the most supreme. But this verse here, he has one transcendental attribute. Well, of course, God has many attributes, but one is being highlighted. And that is, he comes under the control of his devotee. So this is also described by Rupa Goswami. There are 6 characteristics to pure devotional service. The first one is kleshagni, freedom from material distress. When you become interested in spiritual life, genuine spiritual life, you want to become transcendentalist, spiritualist, you get some relief from material nature. Almost like you feel a little lightheaded. You have some goal, some higher goal in life. There's not so much anxiety. The stress level goes down. You feel more peaceful. You have some goal. Kleshagni, freedom from material distress. Of course, as long as we have this material body, this physical body here, there'll always be some problems. But they're reduced. Kleshagni. Subhada, the second characteristic of devotional service, of being a transcendentalist, is auspicious qualities start to manifest in your character. You become peaceful. You become respectful to other living beings. Not just human beings, but animals also. For instance, you become vegetarian. So you're not causing unnecessary pain to animals by being involved in the process of killing them and eating them. You become clean in body and mind. You become humble, respectful, pridelessness. You don't become so arrogant. All these things are diminished. Subhada, auspicious qualities. So another quality or characteristic is that you start developing love for Krishna, God. And this love is able to conquer Krishna. It's able to control him. So, although Krishna is the supreme controller, he comes under the control of his devotees. Now this sounds like a contradiction. So I'm going to mention many examples which from a material point of view are contradictions. And how do we resolve all these contradictions with God? We have to introduce the word inconceivable, which in Sanskrit is achintya. Achintya. Achintya means inconceivable. Chintya means conceivable, means you can measure it, like the depth of the ocean. You can actually measure the height of Mount Everest. It can actually measure it. Material things can be measured. But spiritual things, like the absolute truth, God himself, cannot be measured. Achintya, inconceivable. And without appreciating the inconceivable nature of God, your concept of God is incomplete. It's incomplete. You cannot limit God. He's inconceivable. Jiva Goswami explains this. So, he's the supreme controller. Would you agree? But he's controlled by his devotees. Now that's inconceivable. Doesn't sort of make sense. But these two can be accommodated when understanding the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Krishna, or God, the Absolute Truth, he's the smallest of the smallest. Or would you agree? He's within every atom. Sanskrit is Adanta Paramanu. Adanta Paramanu Shtan. Paramanu is a smaller than an atom. So he's within every atom. There's so many atoms in this hall, in this temple room. He's within every atom. And yet, so therefore he's the smallest of the smallest. And yet Krishna expands himself, and one of his expansions, Krishna expands himself as Baladev. Baladev expands himself as Sankarshan. Then there's another expansion, Mahavishnu. Then another expansion, Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. And from Mahavishnu, from the pores of his skin come drops of sweat, and each drop of sweat is a universe, Brahmanda. So we could say he's the biggest of the biggest. If the drops of sweat, a human being has a drop of sweat, but God, his drops of sweat are Brahmandas, and a Brahmanda is a universe. So now we have another contradiction. He's the smallest of the smallest, because he's in every atom, and yet he's the biggest of the biggest. Would you agree? It's a contradiction. So again, you have to apply achincha, inconceivable. He's both simultaneously. He's both simultaneously. This is a spiritual concept. Krishna, the absolute truth, is unlimited. He's everywhere throughout the universe. Not just this particular universe we're living in, this Brahmanda, but other universes also. And not just the material world, but also the spiritual world. At the same time, he's on the altar. And we see him. And what is his name? Radha Radhanath. He's on the altar. But he's also on the altar down the road in Phoenix as Lord Jagannath. So he's localized. He's localized. He's on the altar, and yet he's unlimited. He's everywhere. He's here, but he's everywhere. He's everywhere, but he's here. Now, contradiction. Isn't it? You scratch your head, I can't understand all this. It's all little. So achincha, again, inconceivable. Inconceivable. So Krishna, the absolute truth, he's the strongest. And this is one of his qualities, Bhagavan. Van means he possesses. Bhaga, opulence. One of those opulences, 6 in particular, is strength. The universes are being balanced by his power. The scientists may say, oh, it's gravity. But who is responsible for the law of gravity? As soon as you say law, it means someone must have created it. And then secondly, someone must be maintaining that law. Newton came along and gave it a name, but was it existing before Sir Isaac Newton recognized it? Of course it was. 1,000 years ago, if you jumped out of a tall building, you would go down. That's gravity. Newton gave it a name. And then, of course, they name it out of Newton, name it after Newton, Newton's law of gravity. But actually, it's Krishna's, the absolute truth, God. So, he's the strongest, maintaining all the universes. And yet, in this pastime, living in Nandagram, he has the father, Nanda Maharaj, and he goes regularly to pick up Nanda Maharaj's shoes, wooden shoes, and they're quite heavy. And he places them on his head, and he struggles to lift them. And then he gives them to his father. In the courtyard of Nanda Maharaj, it's called Nandagram, Krishna, the absolute truth, as a young boy, as a baby, bacha, he grabs hold of the tail of a young calf and pulls it. And the young calf becomes alarmed and runs off And Krishna won't let go of the tail. So he gets dragged through the mud. He gets dragged through the mud. And yet, he also lifts Govardhan Hill, which weighs millions of tons. Many of you have walked around Govardhan Hill. To walk around Govardhan Hill, 5 hours, about 22 kilometers. It's very heavy. You couldn't lift it. But Krishna, he lifts it. He's 7 years old, and he lifts Govardhan Hill. And yet he struggles. You know, the small cow pulling him through the mud. Then again, inconceivable. How do you weigh this up? He's the strongest, and yet he's not the strongest. He's the purest. Would you agree? God is the purest. You chant his name, and what happens? You get purified. He's the personified form of purity, and yet he gets dragged through the mud, which is full of dirt, called Vrindavan dust. And he has mud all over him, mud in his face. So again, contradiction. When he steals the butter from Mother Yasoda, he goes into a room and breaks the pot, and he's nervously looking on the right and on the left to see when Mother Yasoda will come. And Mother Yasoda creeps up behind him with a stick, and he can't see her. And she stands there behind him looking at his childish activities, appreciating them. So he knows everything. We've just agreed. He knows past, present, and future, but he doesn't know that Mother Yasoda is standing behind him. He's confused. Again, a contradiction. How do you weigh these two up? Contradiction. He knows Krishna gives us reaction for our past karmic activities. He's fully aware of what every jiva, as living entity, does and thinks from time immemorial. He doesn't have to write it down or put it onto computer. He knows. And yet at the same time, he doesn't know Mother Yasoda is standing behind him. He's standing in the courtyard of Mother Yasoda, and he's naked. Young children sometimes, 3 years old, naked. But he has around his waist a bell on a gold thread. And the bell is going ding, 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 ding. Everyone, ding, ding, ding. Ding, ding, ding. Everyone, ding, ding, ding. Ding, ding, ding. And he's thinking, Krishna's thinking, where that sound comes from. Where that sound comes from. He doesn't know. It's coming from his own waist belt. Valayanam, Nipuranam, Kinkininam. See, Kinkininam is the belt that goes around your waist. You see this in India many times, Govardhan Hill. They're walking around Govardhan Hill, the ladies. It's not the men. The ladies, they wear these beautiful silver belts. Some of them are quite thick. Some of them probably weigh 2-3 kilos. You know, and they got bells on them. They're Kinkininam. It's called Kinkininam in Sanskrit, the belts. So Krishna hears this sound, but he doesn't know where it's coming from. He looks around in surprise. So he knows everything, and yet he's confused. He's the strongest, and yet he struggles to control a calf. So these are all contradictions, very wonderful, that are present within God. I can read some more. This is from Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur. Though Lord Krishna possesses all possible powers, he is bound and controlled by prema. So he's the supreme controller, yet he's controlled by the love of his friends, that's Sakya Ras, parents, that's Vatsalya Ras, and the gopis. That's Madhurya Ras. He comes under their control. This bondage, however, being the most astonishing attribute of the Lord, is not a fault, but a beautiful transcendental ornament. It's not a fault, it's a transcendental ornament. The Supreme Controller places himself under the control of his pure devotees. Not mixed devotees, but the highly advanced mixed devotees. By Krishna's nature, he is Atma Rama. Now, Rama means satisfied. Atma. He's self-satisfied. He doesn't need anything. And yet, he's calling out to Mother Yasoda, give me butter. Give me milk. So now, again, another contradiction. He's self-satisfied, like the yogis, yet he wants something. Though Krishna is the personification of peace and pure goodness, he becomes angry. So when Mother Yasoda chased him, he became angry, but it's transcendental anger. And yet at the same time, he's the personification of peace, obviously. Paramam Shantam. Then fear personified is fearful of Krishna, yet Krishna is fearful of Mother Yasoda. Therefore he's running on his chubby legs. He's running from Mother Yasoda, who's running after him. But fear personified, death personified, is afraid of God. Again, another contradiction. Krishna's expansion is Lakshmi, is Narayan. Who is the consort of Narayan? Lakshmi. Lakshmi possesses all wealth, and yet Krishna is begging. That pastime of the Brahmana Yagya wives. Shishi Radha Radhana. The cowherd boys were hungry, Krishna was hungry, Balaram was hungry, and Krishna instructed the cowherd boys, go to the Brahmins, they're doing this yagya, and beg from them some food. It's a pastime. And yet his expansion, Narayan, has a consort, Lakshmi, and Lakshmi is the source of all wealth, the source of all opulence. So again, it appears like a contradiction. Why does a rich person beg? And then it's described Krishna, he can travel faster than the speed of mind. We have the speed of sound, that's fast. But faster than that is the speed of light. I only know it in the old 186,200 miles per second, but I don't know in kilometers. I learned that when I was at school. So, speed of mind is faster than the speed of light. Because in your mind you think and you're there immediately in your mind. But so Krishna is faster than the speed of the mind, faster than the speed of light, and yet he cannot run away from Mother Yasoda. She's catching up with him and about to pounce on him and capture him. Again, now it's a contradiction. Again, it appears to be a contradiction. Though Krishna travels at the speed of mind, he's easily caught by the firm grip of his mother. Although Krishna's condensed bliss, Sandratma, he cries in sorrow. Though Krishna is unlimited and all-pervading, he is limited by being tied up. So Krishna is both simultaneously, and this is inconceivable to us. But as we engage in devotional service and our senses become purified, we'll begin to realize this. But by logic, it makes no sense. If you apply ordinary material logic, it makes no sense. Krishna expands himself as all the living entities. and we are the living entities. Jiva Srupaya, Krishnera Nityadas. But Krishna still remains as a whole. Now the Mayavadis, or the impersonalists, they cannot understand this, so they put a material conception onto this idea that God expands himself. And they say God has expanded himself with the living entities. Therefore, all the living entities themselves are all God. And the original God is no longer there. And the example is you take a big piece of paper and you split it into small little sections, 10,000 or 1 million. Then they say the original piece of paper no longer exists. Now that's a material example. But from the spiritual point of view, we take that spiritual piece of paper, we bifurcate it, we break it up into small pieces. It remains as small pieces, who are the living entities, numerous, billions. But the original piece of paper still exists, and that is God. So we do not become God. We are always the servants of God. Jiva Srupaya, Krishnera Nityadas, Nitya, eternally the servants of God. Mami Vamsa Jiva Loka, Jiva Bhuta Sanatana. Jiva, the living entity, is Sanatana, eternally the servant of God. So this is somewhat inconceivable. So at the beginning I explained those two words. Savagya, Mukdata. Savagya knows past, present and future, knows everything. But Mukdata, he forgets. And he thinks, I'm a young boy in the courtyard of Nanda Maharaj and Mother Yasoda. And he's not just acting. It's like we have, the film stars, and they act. So you have some film star, he's acting as Superman. Now he knows very well that he's not Superman. He's not going to jump off, a building, and think he can fly. He is just acting. But Krishna is not just acting. He really thinks by the influence of Yoga Maya that he's a young boy, and this is his mother. So there's two types of Maya. You know this. The word Maya means illusion. There is Maha Maya and there's Yoga Maya. Maha Maya exists in the material world, and we're all under the influence of Maha Maya. The Yoga Maya only exists in Vrindavan. To a certain degree in Ayodhya, a less degree in Vaikuntha. One of the acharyas has said actually Yoga Maya doesn't even exist in Vaikuntha. But in Vrindavan it particularly is present. And Yoga Maya, Sarup Shakti, this special potency, Satya Sankalpa Shakti, it has the potency to cover the intelligence of even Krishna, and therefore Krishna thinks, I'm a young boy, I'm a baby, and also covers the intelligence of his devotees, Mother Yasoda, cowherd boys. And they think, oh, Krishna, he's just my friend, but he's a real special friend. But they don't think he is God, Ishvara Parama Krishna. If Mother Yasoda thought Krishna is Ishvara Parama Krishna, the supreme controller, Aham Savachya Prabhavo, that from which everything emanates, would she chase after him? What do you think? She'd be hesitant. She'd stand there with her hands together in reverence and bow down to Krishna. But she's chasing Krishna, thinking, he's my beautiful son. I will bind him for his own good. I will correct him as a mother. Mothers, fathers, it is our duty to correct the children if they do something a little wrong. So it's this Yoga Maya potency of Krishna, which is very much present in Vrindavan, which allows these pastimes to go on. And one such pastime is this celebrated in the month of Kartik, where Krishna steals yogurt, steals butter, Mother Yasoda becomes alarmed, runs after him with a stick. Krishna becomes afraid. Then Mother Yasoda sees his fear and then throws away the stick because she doesn't want to make Krishna too frightened. But then she thinks, all right, Krishna's done something wrong. It's all right, I'm not going to strike him. But I will tie him. I will tie him to the mortarboard. Then she gets the rope and she tries to tie him. And we know the pastime. The rope is too short. And it always remains too short. She tries to extend it. And then eventually Krishna, the Yogamaya potency, Satya Sankalpa Shakti it's called, that potency of the Lord that enacts or allows pastimes to immediately be performed, agrees. All right, let Mother Yasoda tie him on. And then he is bound. So he's really bound by the love of Mother Yasoda. Krishna is controlled by the love of his devotees. The love. So bhakti is synonymous with praying or love. We as devotees are trying to develop our love for Radha and Krishna, unadulterated love. Love in its highest aspect means you give and you give and you give. And that giving is intrinsic in that love. You never expect anything in return. You never want anything back. You never demand anything. In this material world, the so-called love, it's not like that. You know, the man and woman marry and they satisfy each other's senses. You scratch my back, I will scratch yours. You play the game and you can remain my husband or wife. You must support me. I must support you. I must protect you. They're wanting something material in exchange. But real love, one of the characteristics of real love is intrinsic in that love is this mood of giving. And you continue to give. And as soon as that mood of giving reduces or is shrunken, it's no longer love. Another characteristic of love is it's eternal. Now, you love your children, no doubt, but there was a time when you didn't have your children. So how could you love them? And in your last life, you also had children and a wife and a husband. So now do you love them? You can't even remember them, isn't it? Can you remember your parents in your last life? You love your parents in this lifetime. What about last lifetime? And the one before that, and the one before that, and the one before that? You can't even remember them. What to speak of love them? But Scripture tells us we're eternal. So we've had parents. So love is eternal. The so-called love in this material world is temporary. It ends at the time of death. And even before that, you know, the divorce rate now throughout the world is roughly 50%. So the man and woman come together in matrimony, in the church or the temple. I love you back. Here's the ring. I will remain faithful to you until death comes. And then 5 years later, what do we have? Divorce. I hate you back. And then you take another wife. You take another husband. Like our famous actress Elizabeth Taylor. 6 times she marries. She married the same person twice. You know, so this is not actually real love. Love is eternal. And one can only really have love for Krishna or God. You can't have love for material object. In this lifetime, you love South Africa. You love Table Mountain. But in your last life, you may have been born in Siberia. You may have been born in Mongolia. You know? So, real love, one of the characteristics is that it's eternal. Another characteristic is that you don't ask anything in return. You're not asking, you're not expecting anything in return. Not even recognition. Therefore, Lord Chaitanya says, you can embrace me. You can trample me on the ground. You can roughly embrace me. I will always remain your devotee. Lord Chaitanya prays in Shastakam prayers. So the love of Mother Yasoda is on a very high level. You just consider, meditate on the affection that the mother has for the son or the daughter in this material world. Multiply it, koti times. Koti is 10 million. Multiply it. We can get some understanding of Mother Yasoda's love for Krishna by looking at the love that a mother has for the child in this material world. The mother's love is generally more intense than the husband. Ladies, would you concur with that? Would you agree? When the child cries at night, has a bad dream or wants water or milk, then who attends to the child? The mother or the father? Nowadays the father. What does the father usually do? Roll over and go back to sleep? Or perhaps doesn't even wake up? It's the mother usually. So Mother Yasoda's affection for Krishna, we can get some little understanding, by seeing in this material world the relationships and then multiplying it within our mind millions of times. So this love for Krishna is prema pamatamahan, is the goal of life. Love for Krishna is the ultimate goal of life. We, as devotees, we are not so much interested in material opulence, material money, or prestige, or pratishta, name and fame. We're not interested in having lots of followers, or creating a name for ourselves. Our goal in life is very simple: to develop ananya. The word is ananya bhakti, unalloyed love for Krishna. And that can be in the mood of Dashyara, servant, Sakya, friend, Vatsalya, like Mother Yasoda, or Madhuya, like the gopis. There's 5 types of eternal love one can have with God. You don't choose them, you already have it, but you have to reawaken it. And that is the process of chanting Hare Krishna and coming to the temple and reading Bhagavad Gita and taking prasadam. Gradually this eternal relationship, technically called Sthai Bhav, Sthai means permanent, our permanent relationship with Krishna is awakened, is awoken. Doesn't happen in a weekend, takes a while, but spiritual life is so sweet that it's always very relishable, even in the beginning stage. Genuine spiritual life or devotional service is very relishable. Gives you that higher taste. Param tisvanavatante, higher taste. Material enjoyment is lower taste. But spiritual enjoyment is of a higher taste. And that's what acts as an impetus or compels us to continue practicing spiritual life. So all of you are on this path. It's wonderful. You continue on this path, chanting Krishna's name, taking prasad, reading Gita, worshipping, trying to preach. Srila Prabhupada, I played a tape. I'm playing the tapes now. This is January 1977. Prabhupada is in Bombay. And he says, Lord Krishna has appeared as his Hare Krishna movement. And we know also Krishna's Kaviraj, Chaitanya Charitamrita, Kalikela Nama Rupa Krishna Avatar. The avatar of Krishna in this age is his holy name. So take shelter of the holy name of God. Iti soda sakam sava videshu drishtate kalikamasa nasinam. Nistara, nasinam, destroyer. Narada Muni, he's one of our gurus. So Narada Muni was very concerned about how people in the Kali Yuga will make spiritual advancement. So he went to Lord Brahma, who's his guru. Brahma is the guru of Narada. And he asked, how will people make spiritual advancement in this age? And Lord Brahma said, by chanting the names of God. And then Narada Muni asked, well, which specific names of God? And then Lord Brahma said, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And then Lord Brahma said, these names are so powerful that Kali will tremble when these names are heard. Kali will tremble. So, Kali Kamasa Nasinam, Nistara Nasinam, the destroyer of the evil effects of the Kali Yuga. And you'll not find a better process in the whole of the Vedas. Sava, Vedeshu, and all the Vedas, you'll not find a better process than Iti, Soda, Saksham, these 16 names. And you possess them. To possess these holy names, all you need is faith. Shraddha. So all of you have that faith. You're all chanting at least 1 or 2 rounds. Some of you may be doing 16, very good. And some of you during the month of Kartik may be chanting even more than 16. Iti Sodosa Saksham. So thank you very much. Please continue chanting, continue worshipping Krishna, knowing this is the ultimate goal of life. And you're on the right path. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Shri Radha Damodar ki jai. Shri Radha Radhanath ki jai. Jagannath Subhadra Balarama ki jai. Shri Nitai Gaura Hari ki jai. Srila Prabhupada. So, there's only one question. Hare Krishna, you stated that Krishna acted to be a small boy under the influence of Yogamaya. Isn't it that he is eternally a small boy and the title of God is more applicable to Vishnu Narayan? So, both statements are correct. He's eternally a small boy, running around in Nandagram. He's eternally a cowhide boy, Puganda, 5 till 10, playing with the cowhide boys. He's eternally Kishore, 10 to 15, dancing with the gopis. And he's eternally in Dwarka. But the title God is more applicable to Vishnu and Narayan. That's also correct. But one should understand that Vishnu or Narayan is the expansion of Krishna. Now it gets technical. There's Krishna and his pure devotees like Mother Yasoda, Nanda Maharaj, cowherd boys. Now first is Prakash. Prakash means direct manifestation. And then you have Amsa. Amsa is a portion. And then you have Kala, a portion of a portion. And then you have Anga. Anga is more than Amsa. My body is Angi, my arm is Anga. So Krishna's Anga would be Vishnu, Narayan. So Amsa, Kala, and then Avesh. Avesh means living entity like you and me, but empowered with the power of God. So Avesh, Lord Buddha, Avesh, Parashuram, Avesh, Rishabdev, Avesh, Narada Muni. Avesh, we understand, is divine grace. A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. And one can become a Vesh for a limited time, like Nakula Brahmachari, or one can be a Vesh with a certain power of God. So Brahma is a Vesh or empowered by Krishna to do what? create. He is a creator, and he created this universe. But Prithu Maharaj, he was a Vaish to maintain. He was the perfect king. The four Kamaras were a Vaish to give out transcendental knowledge. Narada Muni was a Vaish to give out devotional service. And we will put Prabhupada also in that same category. He was able to spread devotional service to Krishna very effectively in an extremely short time. In an extremely short time, 11, 12 years. So thank you very much for being so patient and listening to my rambles. Are there any other questions you'd like to ask or any other comments you'd like to make? Anyone? So we'll have a short kirtan, and then the lamps is at what time? So 7:30, we're lamping up and offering the lamp, which represents our heart. The flame is very attractive, is it not? It looks very attractive, that flame. And we offer that. It's like the heart. So we offer it to first the devotees, Mother Yasoda, Prabhupada. And then we offer it to Damoda, Radharanath. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya